Hey, moms, here is a question for you. Are you in a season of waiting? Do you have an ever present longing in your life? Are you being told over and over again that God's timing is perfect, but whatever you're waiting on is not happening? Well, today I have author Rebecca George on the show, and she has some great advice for exactly the situation that you're in right now. Her book is You're Not Too Late, Trusting God's Timing in a Hurry Up World. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Thanks for being here. Hello, moms. Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer Bosma, wife, mom, grandma, former teacher for 23 years, and now a Christian children's book author and your podcast host. Are you a faith-based mom trying to live out a Christian life for your family? Do you want to learn more ways that you can have power over your child's spiritual growth? Inside this podcast, you will find tried and true ideas to grow in your faith and be the best wife and mom you can be. So listen in as you're cleaning up, doing the drive, or matching that sock, and be encouraged to know that God has his front parking spot set aside for you. Hello, moms, and thank you so much for being on the Front Parking Spot podcast today. Today, my guest is Rebecca George. She is an author, podcaster, coach, and speaker whose greatest joy in life is discipling others to pursue their passions in a way that builds a kingdom. Her work has been featured on outlets such as Life Today, Home Life Magazine, and Moody Radio. Rebecca and her husband, Dustin, live in East Tennessee, and I'll have all the ways to connect with Rebecca in my show notes. Welcome, Rebecca.
Oh, Jennifer, I'm so happy to be with you. Thank you for having me today.
I am so glad you're here, and I absolutely loved receiving your book, You're Not Too Late, Trusting God's Timing in a Hurry Up World. Okay, God's timing. Yes, let's talk a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about your book and that incredible topic.
Oh, yeah. It became so important to me, Jennifer, as I thought back over my life, whether it was in my single years or even now as a married woman. My husband and I don't have children yet. There are so many seasons of longing throughout our lives where we're waiting on God to provide in a certain area, or we're wondering how the story will play out as God continues to write our story. And I think that looks so different for all of us. I know we're talking to a lot of moms today.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes when we think about this topic, we might think, oh, well, that's for the single gal, or that's for the, woman waiting to reconcile a relationship or grow her career. And I'm a stay-at-home mama making chicken nuggets today. How does that apply to me? And I just would be willing to bet if we could all sit down over coffee, there is something that you are waiting on. There's something that you're longing for that you're trusting God with. Right. And there's so many challenges that come up in that. And I know that's what we're going to talk about in our time today. But yeah, I think as I dreamed about what my next book would be, this felt like a natural next topic. And I'm just excited for what God has for us today as we talk about it.
Oh, I love it. And I was reading through your book, and I've already shared your book with family members.
I love it.
So great.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to your podcast too, and we'll just tease the listeners about the bench. Loved it.
Oh, thank you. I love that story. I'm so glad I got to write it into the book.
That is there's no coincidences with God,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about all that. So y'all need to pick up a copy of her book so you can learn about that too. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But you know what? When I was a younger mom, I have a great friend, and she gave me the advice. And, I was juggling, I had 2 kids at the time, and we had just moved in and we had no money. We had 1 car, we're just being, just the early married things. And she told me one piece of advice, and it was like, you cannot find true contentment until you just be content. Just be content in the season you're in. And then God will bring you that peace and he'll bring you that contentment. Just embrace where you're at right now. And it was such a great piece of advice. And your book kind of goes along with that when you're in.
Yeah, totally. And I think the hard thing about that, Jennifer, is to me, I love, and it is a biblical command to be content in the Lord, right? Like that is part of us working out, living in a broken world, longing for things and trusting God in that. I think sometimes where I struggled is when I received advice like that was awesome advice, well-intentioned
Right,
advice.
right.
There were times where I would go, "Okay, but what am I supposed to do with that?"
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't just will myself to contentment, right? And we even see Paul saying in the New Testament, like, "I have learned to be content," meaning, like, it's a process as we continue to trust the Lord, which I think is so important to say because it's easy for us to just know at a surface head level, we should be content in the Lord, but it's a different thing altogether, I think, when we begin to confront our doubts of how
Mhm.
the story will work out, when we confront our fears of what will happen next year when my kid starts at this new school, or the resentment that's grown in my heart because we have these two beautiful children, but we long to have another child. And my best friend is pregnant. How am I supposed to celebrate her and manage what that does to the bitterness in my own heart, right? It's those types of life experiences that I think work out our contentment as we try and pursue learning to be content in the Lord, as Paul says. And, yeah, I don't know. I think that's where my mind goes when I hear that advice is like, "Yes, amen, and what do I do?" How do
Mhm.
I how do I grow that as I pursue the Lord, you know?
'Cause you know it's true, what they're saying is
Of
true, but you're
course.
dealing with these internal things like, "I want this to happen, and need a new job, and we don't have enough money to do XYZ," and
Yeah.
all the things, definitely. Well, one of the questions I have here for you, and I think this can really relate to a lot of the moms, are what are your real life ideas for when you're dealing with the envy, when you're dealing with the isolation and the doubt for what's going on in your life right now?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's so important, Jennifer, and a few things I'll give. Most importantly, I'll start with, like, on a heart level, don't do anything else before you do this kind of advice, and then I'll give some real practical things. Number 1, I think sometimes we're just unwilling to go to the Lord about it. Like,
Mhm.
we sit in our own bitterness or our own despair over a situation and we talk about it, we talk around it, we share it with a friend, but we don't actually go to the Lord and say, "You know what? That really hurt or disappointed me. And I'm struggling to see how that thing is the thing that is going to bring you the most glory. Would you give me your perspective on that?" Like being really honest before the Lord. And I don't know about you, Jennifer, but for me, I grew up in the South, and part of Southern culture is this very, like, "I'm good, I'm fine, but I'm busy," kind of, like, always have the happy, shiny face on,
Right.
to the detriment of, like, actually being honest and vulnerable in relationships many times, and I know for me, many seasons of my life, I've put that same expectation on my relationship with God
Mhm.
where I've been unwilling to just be really raw about where my heart is on a particular situation as if he doesn't already know, right? And so I think step 1 for me would be taking it to the Lord and just being really honest about where your heart is. I talk in the book about a passage that has come to mean a lot to me. It's in Psalm 139 and it's verses 23 and 24. Listeners may be familiar with it, but it says, "Search my heart, O God, try me and know my anxious thoughts. And if there be a grievous way in me, lead me in the way everlasting." And I've kind of started using that as a prayer prompt of sorts for myself if I'm beginning to slip into doubt or I'm struggling with envy, to just say, "God, you have permission to search my heart. Try me and show me where those anxious thoughts are bubbling up. Where am I thinking about this in a way that's contrary to what you say? And lead me back to whatever that is." And so I think real practically, number 1, take it to the Lord. Number 2, I also think sometimes these moments of envy, I'll speak to that specifically, come up in our hearts a little bit because they catch us off guard. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like let's say we have a mom friend listening who is struggling with infertility and her best friend is having a baby shower next weekend.
Right,
So
right.
she's putting her heart in that position where she wants to celebrate her friend
Mhm.
and this amazing blessing that God has given in their life, and she's sitting in this place of desire and longing. And a couple of practical things we can do if we're in that place are, number 1, kinda pre-decide how we wanna show up for that friend. Like,
Mhm.
grieve the situation we are in and the longing in our own hearts, deal with that with the Lord, but
Mhm.
when you walk in that baby shower is not the moment to do that.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
so spend some time really processing that with the Lord before you step into the baby shower situation so that you can show up for your friend with joy. And another thing that I see really commonly cause issues in women is just the questions we get asked when it pertains to our longing. So let's say we walk in the baby shower and friend of a friend knows that we desire to have another child, knows that we're struggling, and she asks us about it. And our heart isn't prepared to answer that in that particular moment, right? That
Yeah.
bubbles up in our hearts. We spend the rest of the day or the week frustrated that they asked, and it causes this kind of outsized response in us. Whereas, I think if we would step back before the baby shower and say, "You know what? If I get asked about that,
Right.
how could I answer it in a way that offers them grace for the question that they're asking that's just generally being curious about our life, and then grace for ourselves in a way that doesn't over justify or over explain maybe our season of life?" So, I think long way around, take it to the Lord,
Right.
pre-decide how you wanna show up in those moments, and pre-decide how you wanna answer those questions about your longing.
Yeah, because 'cause you're gonna get that question, and as you were talking, I was thinking that is so awkward because part of us would be like, "I don't even wanna go." "I
Yeah.
don't go."
Yeah.
And then you kinda pull away, but then everyone there will, then you'll think everyone will, "Well, she's not going because she's not pregnant," or, "It's awkward for her."
Right. Yeah.
So you that is an excellent idea to really ask, and, a great answer as you're talking to that woman who says, "So when are you pregnant?" Just say, "Well, we're working on it. I'd appreciate your prayers."
Yeah.
And just spin it back to her and say, "We'd love some prayers that will, come to fruition."
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
But
And I also think those questions can be some of the greatest teachers to us on how to be a really good friend,
Mhm.
right? Like, if you are listening, and again, most of us listening today are moms. I find myself in a season of life where that is not my story yet.
Right.
But I tell you what, Jennifer, the friends who love me in the sweetest way in the season of my life are the friends who have chosen to be about what God is doing in my life.
Mm. Mhm.
Right? So
Right.
whether it's motherhood or a career or ministry or whatever it is that God has chosen to bless in that friend's life, or you're seeing fruit in her in that way, be about it. Ask about it. Be curious about it. And so, friendship tip for our mom friends who maybe
Right.
feel like it's harder to connect with their single friends or their young married friends without kids. I think that would be my best piece of advice, is just be about it. And whether it's the desire for motherhood or something else, no one is more acutely aware of that longing than your friend who's struggling with infertility, or your friend who's whatever, right? Nobody is more aware of that than them. And so the most kind thing you can do many times is to just be about whatever God is doing in their life.
Oh, that's so good because this is relating to so many people if they have kids or not.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's just like, you have that friend whose husband is getting all the promotions and doing all the things, and they're moving to the big house. And then, right now with social media, that doesn't help things either. And
Yeah.
a lot of people post things up, and they're not trying to say, "Hey, oh, look at me." Some are, but then it's hard. How would you tell that mom that's listening to not have that resentment, or that it's not
Mm,
in her situation, like her husband's not getting the promotion and they're still living in the small house, when she
yeah.
sees a feeling of lack? What would you
Yeah.
tell that mama?
Yeah. Well, we can only control our side of the street.
Mhm.
Right? So,
Right.
will we change the fact that we live in a culture where if we choose to partake of social media, we're going to have to see highlight reels of people's lives all day? No, we're probably not gonna change that. However, we can change the way that we live with it and deal with it.
Mhm.
And so if you are constantly noticing about your heart that, you know what, when I spend a few minutes in the carpool line just scrolling Instagram, I'm finding I'm leaving that interaction with the internet feeling more bitter, more resentful, and more envious. That is a really healthy cue to say, you know what? I need to have some guardrails around that. Right?
Mhm.
Like, I know that my heart can't withstand that in this season because it's an area of struggle for me.
Mhm.
And so, you know what? I'm going to set a time limit on my phone. I have this amount of time per day that I can be on the app, or I'm going to delete the apps altogether off of my phone these days of the week and truly just cold turkey have some time away from it. Sometimes our hearts need that. And so if you need a permission slip to do that, Jennifer and I are giving it to you today for sure.
Yes.
Because I think uh, sometimes the best answer is not figure out how to scroll the internet and deal with it better. It's I need to take time away from the internet.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that would be major. And then if you're just ruminating on that and you're finding yourself like my friend down the street, they just got to move into a bigger house or whatever, and it's more real life scenario than online. Man, wouldn't the enemy love to
Mhm.
distract you from what God is doing in your life, in your family, in your season by fixing your eyes on someone else, right? Like that is what an easy lever for the enemy to pull,
Right, exactly.
right? And so recognizing that can be really helpful too as a guardrail of like, ooh, I've been really distracted by this
Mhm.
week.
And, you can also take a prayer and, like, when you see their house, because we never know what's
Yes,
going on behind closed doors,
that's right.
and then, just when you start, you can kinda, like, completely do a 180 and say, "Okay, I'm having these feelings because Susie down the street is moving and sold their house and moving to a wonderful spot, but you know what? Imma pray for Susie." So if we
Yeah,
take authority over that and just really put because we don't know what's really going on in their heart, and not that
yeah,
we want anything bad going on in their heart, but just to
right.
you said the devil wants to put it right in your face, and
Yes.
but if you can, like, take that back for God and just lift their family up in prayer, and then you can do the tag, the PS, "Lord, let that be us one day. Let us, bless us with your house," but just take every thought into the obedience of Christ where it says that in the
Mm,
Bible. So
yeah, that's so good.
that is so, so good. Wow. So tell us like how can we get your book? Like cuz you're not too late trusting God's timing in a hurry up world. I mean, the chapters in this book can relate to every mom at every season of their life. How can they connect with you and get your book and all the good things?
Sure. Well, I'm the most active over on Instagram. My handle is Rebecca George Author. I'm a CCA Rebecca, so that's easy to remember. And I have a podcast as well where we have weekly conversations that point listeners to what it looks like to radiate the heart of Jesus and all that they do, their life, their work, their relationships, their motherhood, all the things. And that's called Radical Radiance. So we're actually walking through the book chapter by chapter for the next
Mm.
10 weeks or so. So those episodes will be available for you if you want to dig deeper into a particular topic. But you can grab the book, You're Not Too Late, Trusting God's Timing in a Hurry Up World, wherever you like to buy books, Amazon, Christian Book, Barnes and Noble, all the places.
And I love on your website. I did it right before, cuz subscribe to your website, but I went and did the little quiz. You have
Yes.
a quiz and tell the listeners about the quiz cuz you had some little nuggets of advice for me at the end of that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So it's called the Waiting Personality Quiz. So anytime we're in a season of waiting or longing, there's a way that we process it, right? Some of us are just dreamers about the future and we spend time just kind of ruminating on what life might look like. Sometimes we kind of run from the fear of what that might look like in our lives. And so there's a million different ways that it can play out and you'll get a customized result based on your responses, but it takes like 90 seconds to take. And
Right?
it's on the website homepage. So if you go to radicalradiance.live, you can grab it there.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for being on the Front Parking Spot podcast. These nuggets are going to touch the hearts of many moms that are dealing with that longing that they're experiencing right now.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks for being here.
Well, mamas, thank you so much for joining in. I know you are super busy doing all the things that can consume your day, but you took a couple of minutes to learn how God wants to build you up in your faith, family, and life, and He wants to applaud you for this. Please subscribe and review my show. This helps other moms tune in as well. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram at Front Parking Spot, on Facebook at Front Parking Spot Mom Community, or my website at jenniferbosma.com. Have an Ephesians 3:20 type of day, mamas, and be encouraged as you go for the front parking spot in your life today. God bless.